Sam Amick of The Athletic called in early. He's a professional, and I appreciate you waiting for as long as you have, Sam. Thanks for joining the program.
No problem at all, Rich. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So let's get into it here. What's happening in Lakerdom this morning? What do you think everybody's waking up thinking? Because they are going to play their last game of February from the 11th spot in the Western Conference standings on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's not pretty. You know what I mean? The standings speak for themselves. The inconsistency speaks for itself. The talking points after the game speak for themselves. It's not good. You got a group that I think once we saw the Anthony Davis sweepstakes kind of reach the level that they did with the number of names that were publicized in trade packages, and then you already had the Luke Walton situation that was tenuous at best, and just so many moving parts that don't lend to, cohesiveness and chemistry. I think that's what we're seeing right now. And then you run into teams like Memphis that it's a little bit like, the Warriors get everybody's best shot every single time out. And even though the Lakers are bottom feeders right now, I think because you have LeBron on your team, you have that same dynamic, which is not helping. So, they're certainly in a tough spot.
Well, then how do they get out of this spot? How do they get out?
To be honest, I don't think they do. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. That's just my 2 cents. I don't trust kind of their togetherness. Their inconsistency, again, is an issue. So it's interesting to discuss and analyze it because there's part of me that says, like, if you're a Laker fan, how much does this really matter? How excited are you to get into the first round and then get sent packing at that point? I think the only substantive relevance of it, to be honest, is the coaching situation, because if they were to get in, if they were to put on a spirited show, and who knows, even, kind of scare a team like the Warriors in the first round or something like that, then certainly Luke Walton could save his job and be back next year. Anything short of that, I'd be surprised if Luke was back. And so I think that stuff matters. But when it comes to their bigger picture plan, we all know what they're trying to do here. Half the guys that are in that locker room aren't long for that Lakers jersey. I think that's partly what's affecting their spirit as a team.
You think so? Sam Amick of The Athletic joining me here. And again, I played the LeBron soundbite that went viral last night, and I placed it in the perspective of the question and answer. It wasn't something that he just volunteered. It was an answer, the only answer to the question that was asked that he could possibly give, which is, do you think there's a distraction about the playoff conversation here in the locker room? And he gave the appropriate answer. So I guess I will ask the question as to, following up with what you said right there, that LeBron absolutely would want to make the playoffs and give a scare and find out who's the guy to actually stick around for the Laker uniform, or you think that really Anthony Davis did screw everything up?
Well, I think your point is valid. It screwed everything up, but could it be temporary? Yeah, I guess. Let's go play the scenario out. If they don't get AD this summer, which if I'm handicapping it, I'm going to give Boston the lead on that front, then inevitably that means some of these current Lakers guys are maybe going to be part of the solution potentially. And so when you see Brandon have the kind of games that he's had recently, you see Kuzma step up, then sure, if you're LeBron, then you're trying to figure out, kind of how you see these guys, and that stuff does matter. I just tend to think that, it's fascinating to see LeBron go from east to west and to struggle so mightily to get into the playoffs. And I think for him individually, it matters because the optics are so bad. And this guy has been, at the top of the mountain or near it for 9 years now. And it's going to be an out-of-body experience potentially to be on the outside looking in and not be able to get into the top 8. So I'm not trying to pretend for a second that it doesn't matter for him. I just think that, it's a team game, and that's why it gets so tricky. To piggyback real quick on your other point, and as I was kind of waiting to get on, and I appreciated what you said about the question that was given to LeBron, and I actually had just gotten off the phone with my buddy and colleague Bill Oram at The Athletic, who was the guy who asked the question. And so, kudos to you for being responsible with that video clip, because I do think it went viral in the wrong kind of way. Bill had asked him specifically if he thought that the push for the playoffs was a distraction. He put that word into the conversation, and LeBron was just reacting off of that.
Well, Sam, my philosophy is think responsibly. You know what I mean? You got to think responsibly when you get to my microphone.
And these guys, you're right about these athletes, and I've been dealing with this a lot lately. Honestly, I think I'm based in Northern California, and I've been in the middle of the Kevin Durant stuff recently, and there are times when I think these guys are 100% justified in being frustrated with how the media handles certain things, and social media in particular is tricky. So, we got to cut through some of that and figure out what these guys are actually saying.
Sam Amick of The Athletic joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. I will ask you the same question that I asked your colleague from ESPN, Brian Windhorst, yesterday, and I asked of Daryl Morey, the Rockets general manager, when he was here in person last Thursday. Do you think that the free agents to be, including Durant, that you say you've been in the middle of it, so much is assumed that they have already made up their minds and also somehow signaled to teams that are desperate to have max contracts filled out, certainly to help make the moves that they've made cash, that they have communicated to these teams that they're interested in coming or are coming? Do you think that anybody has actually done such a thing?
I think they're smart enough to not ever do that directly. Do I think that, a team like the Knicks has a very high level of optimism that would not be there if some reason for optimism had not been, conveyed to them? No, they're not. I do not believe they're doing this of their own accord entirely to best position themselves to get, two specific max players. I think that the league has itself a very challenging situation when it comes to tampering because, it's not that hard in any walk of life to have a message conveyed through a couple of back channels so that the certain people's hands are clean and then they can go about their business. And I don't know exactly how that sausage is made every single time, but the Knicks thing is real. There's a reason that they feel really good about their shot at this thing, but that's not, for me anyway, at all to say that it's already over the finish line and we're just waiting for him to put on the jersey. I still fall back on the reality that from a human standpoint, if you're a guy like Kevin Durant and you go win a third straight title, then your mind has to then process what's best for you in your career. Like, there are still events to happen here that do play a part, but do I think wheels are in motion in certain spots? Absolutely.
So what makes you think that the Knicks thing is real, Sam?
Having spoken to people on that side on both sides of the ledger, but haven't had told that. I mean, as you know, Rich, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus.
Sure.
And share those talks, but I wrote a column about 2-3 weeks ago that had the kind of tone that I certainly never would have taken if it was sheer speculation. In the wake of the Porzingis trade, I was somewhat surprised to learn a few things that on the Knicks side said, wow, okay, so you guys feel pretty good about this. And then you have the gray area which is what sorts of things the teams themselves are saying. And then you have, one person removed what they are telling other teams, which is where a lot of times you got to be responsible with that, obviously, because, it becomes a game of telephone, but that's also where a lot of the truth comes out with, what are these teams telling each other in private conversations. But this stuff free agency doesn't start on July 1st. That's just the bottom line. And I know the league would love to have a utopian world where that is the case. It's just not. These teams want to kind of up the odds of their chances of getting the best players on the planet, and they feel like they have to get ahead of it to do that.
Sam Amick of The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show. Look, I'll repeat to you again what I've been saying into this microphone for a couple of weeks. Until somebody beats the Warriors, we're all going to be sitting here and wondering, how can the Warriors be beaten in free agency? Or even better yet, having them broken up by free agency. And we had Windhorst, again, as I mentioned yesterday, saying that Draymond Green hired Rich Paul because he's going to go to the mattresses. He wants to go to war in this non-playing season. Klay Thompson, as we all know, can walk just like Durant. But why can't Durant win a third time, sit down with management in Golden State and Steve Kerr and basically say, stick around here. We'll make it a more friendly situation for you, and you can not get the legacy of trying to start your own thing, and good luck with that with James Dolan. which obviously they won't say, but that's just me going down a Dolan wormhole. But saying to him,
right.
you can be dynastic on the form potentially of the Boston Celtics of those great years. Why can't Durant hear that and say, you know what, I'll just stay put?
I mean, he could. You know what I mean? He absolutely could. I think the thing that Kevin has got to analyze and is going to have to analyze as he gets closer to free agency is the organization's top to bottom. Like what you just hit on with James Dolan, and I can't speak for the Warriors. I can't speak for even the Clippers or even the Lakers. You know, these other franchises, though, I guarantee you are looking at the Knicks going, you got to be kidding me. You know, you got an owner who is widely considered one of the worst in the league and an infrastructure that is, you know, scrutinized with good reason year in, year out, and then a track record that is pretty abominable. And because of the city that you're in and kind of the appeal potentially of coming to play there and kind of be the savior and get them to the mountaintop, you're going to get maybe the best guy in the league. That's challenging because the Warriors look at it like, look what we've built from Joe Lacob and Peter Guber on down, the synergy between their front office and their coaching staff. You know, they check a lot of boxes that the Knicks simply don't. So could that happen? Sure. I think the one thing that is fair to just make sure that it's part of the conversation, though, is that any of these free agents, a guy like Kevin, when you have, you know, 3 years now of sharing the same oxygen with the same other players, and the narrative that if I had to guess, is probably not his favorite, that Steph Curry built this thing, and it doesn't matter what you do, how many Finals MVPs you stack up, you know, you're still going to be the guy who joined late in the game. And that's a tough narrative for him because the reality is that if you look at these last couple of years, Kevin Durant should take as much credit as anybody, you know, for the success they've had. He has been the game changer they hoped he would be when he came a couple summers ago. But I think the human stuff, you know, it eventually and potentially might be what drives them out.
All right, so let's turn our attention the few minutes we have left with Sam Amick of The Athletic here on the Rich Eisen Show. Boston and Toronto tonight. And if we're looking at the Lakers and their recent woes as potentially the residue of the Anthony Davis trade going kablooey, could we say the same thing about the Celtics, about the Anthony Davis trade that we all assume is coming? And Kyrie following up his video of him saying that he could see his number going in the rafters with "Talk to me on July 1st." Could we draw a line to that too?
I think so. Yeah, it's a similar dynamic. I'm not as close to the Celtics situation, although I am going to be over the course of the next week. I'm seeing them like 3 times, so I'll have a better feel. But I think anytime you have high-profile, loud trade talks that involve specific individuals who previously, you know, young people, young players who thought that they were part of the core, thought they were part of the plan, and then now come to find out that that's a distinction that can come and go pretty quickly, I think that's challenging. Jason Tatum, more than anybody, you know, I mean, this is a lot of times our jobs and their jobs, they just have competing objectives. And so I was the first one to write that, yes, Jason Tatum was 100%, you know, discussed as, you know, a name in those kind of pre-trade talks between Boston and New Orleans, essentially where they set the stage for this summer. And the understanding between both teams was that, you know, every guy on the roster would be kind of eligible to discuss. If you're Jason Tatum, that's personal. You know, now you question your future in that city and with that franchise, and that could spill over onto the floor. And then you have a whole nother show that we can do talking about Kyrie and his chosen leadership style and the dynamic between him and his teammates. I mean, I think it is a little sideways in Boston. We're seeing similar to the Lakers, you know, not on the same level, but inconsistency. One night pulling out a huge win that impresses you. The next night, very puzzling, you know, looking like the worst team in the league type performance. So tough to get a beat on them right now.
So you've got the Raptors at 2 in the East, taking on Boston, 5 in the East. Also tonight on the back end of the Turner doubleheader on TNT, you've got 2 and 3 in the West having at it after the Rockets just beat the Warriors at home on their floor on Saturday night. So my last question for you, Sam Amick, give me the team that's best positioned to beat the Warriors now and the team with cap space, max contract space, the ability to make trades or what have you, that is best positioned to beat the Warriors and break them up or take over the NBA in the long run right now.
So for the now, I'm having a little bit of recency bias. Milwaukee is in my neck of the woods this week, and I have studied their game and some of their tape recently. I've studied their numbers, and I think we're still overlooking them. And I know it's rare to see a team go from, first-round playoff exits to championship-level basketball, but it's really hard for me right now to not buy what the Bucks are selling. They're the only team in the league that is top 5 in offensive rating and defensive rating. Giannis, I think right now, if I had to pick, is the MVP. Mike Budenholzer has unlocked something not only in him but in them as a group with some great roster moves by John Horst and his front office, where they've got a system and a combination of a system and star power that I really think are going to make some noise in the playoffs. So that would be right now. Going forward, I don't know if I'm having a hard time making the correlation between the teams with space and that necessarily leading to being the kind of the Golden State bust-up candidate, because Denver is a squad that I look at, and it's going to be improvements around the edges for them. But they have a core that I don't think people realize how young it is, and it's already really, really good. And, we're seeing them right there in the standings with a team like the Warriors. So I'm bullish on Denver. As far as the explosive free agency possibilities, it's going to be, I think it's Boston. If they can get AD in this trade, re-sign Kyrie, which is a free agency move, then they're going to be on their way. And I think, that could be the squad that's raising the trophy pretty soon here.
Sam, great chat. Appreciate the call. Look forward to the next one. Love to have you here in person in studio, and safe travels.
That'd be great. Thanks, Rich.
You got it. You bet. That's Sam Amick of The Athletic, at Sam_Amick.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.